San Francisco's median housing price has jumped over 18% year over year to over 2 million in 2026. People who move here are excited about the opportunities in tech, other sectors in the industry, the cultural diversity, the weather, Californian dream and lifestyle. But there are some realities of living in San Francisco that completely blindside newcomers. I've lived in the Bay Area for 16 years. I didn't intend to stay this long when I first moved here. My experience in different parts of the Bay Area, working in different industries, can help me think about what are 12 realities that might be shocking to you if you're moving from out of state. Do these 12 facts make the premium we pay for housing here in the Bay Area even more ridiculous? I'll let you decide that. In San Francisco and in the fog belts in the East Bay, the fog reality could change everything if you have seasonal affective disorder. So fog is a common weather phenomenon in the Bay Area. The weather can drastically change from one side of San Francisco to the other side of San Francisco, from west to east. West side is generally, because of the terrain and proximity to the ocean, much foggier than and colder, and in between windier than the east side of San Francisco. And these conditions are most prevalent in the summertime. Right now, July, it's an exception. There have been quite a few days this year in 2026 where fog hasn't gone away the entire day. If you're in Pacific Heights or you're in the west side of San Francisco, if you're in some of the other western neighborhoods of San Francisco. So as Mark Twain said, the coldest winter he ever experienced was a summer in San Francisco. There's foggy July. There's attire that you wouldn't expect to have to carry with you throughout the day to adjust for also the changing weather patterns throughout the day. So you'll see the fog roll in during a certain time period as the sun starts to go down in the summer months. A common colloquialism like May gray, June gloom, no sky, July, and fogust. Although this July has been relatively sunny. Anyway, I don't want to give your hopes up. If you decide to move in one of the neighborhoods on the fog map here, if you're purchasing a home in one of these areas, well, especially close to the sea elements along Ocean Beach, the outer Richmond, outer Sunset, if you're close to sea cliffs, some of the elements from this type of weather and high winds can erode stucco, siding, windows. This added moisture in the air means more maintenance for also those 1950s, 60s build apartment buildings. So mildew, mold can be more present if there's not proper ventilation and insulation. So it has its own little ecosystem where temperatures can vary by 10 degrees from one neighborhood to another neighborhood. So where you choose to live, especially if you're someone coming from a sunnier state or a place where you have clouds that are productive, that lead to rainfall and then dissipate and you see sunshine in the same day, that's just not the type. You're not going to get tropical storms like that here. You also won't have seasons, I must say, like since we're on the topic of weather. So what I have found from living here is that it becomes more difficult to remember when things happen. I know it's a fact that as you get older, you have a harder time, well, if you're not very mindful and you're moving at a San Francisco pace, you have no seasons, no weather to associate a memory to. So oftentimes I'm like, when did that happen? Was that March? Was that December? Was that October of last year? The lack of seasons makes time blur together in a way that it hasn't in other places I've lived in the United States. So don't think that you're moving to a California you saw in a popular TV series. Oftentimes those TV series were based in Southern California. But yeah, water's cold. If you get into the ocean, you're gonna need a wetsuit. If you go down to Pacifica, some of the surf spots, it's not like surfing in Southern California. Fact number 11, the public transportation crisis. If you're moving from a big city like Tokyo, which has really developed underground metro systems in an earthquake-prone area, or London or DC or New York City, San Francisco's public transportation system is not as extensive as you would expect in a densely populated, relatively small city. Despite of San Francisco County's huge budget, the San Francisco Metropolitan Transportation Authority faces a budget deficit of $307 million as of July 2026. It's not as if our public transportation like BART, Muni is cheap like New York City. It's actually quite expensive when you compare common routes, and the deficit's expected to grow to over $400 million by 2030. This is SFMTA. I'm not talking about the BART, the Bay Area Rapid Transit. That's a whole nother conversation in terms of budget deficit. So they're counting on tax measures, cutting costs, not sure how that will be achieved, if that's through employment, if that's through reduced services, and hiking transit fares and parking fees to capture the money required to fill this deficit. Monthly passes offering unlimited service, I believe now are $85. I'm not sure how much the increase from this new measure or from these new regulations would be. But $86 for intra-city transportation is relatively affordable. I don't know compared to other cities in the United States like New York or DC, how that monthly cost compares, but I'll put that here. Owning a car is going to be a serious inconvenience. I mean, a lot of folks do use the Waymos and still continue to use Lyft and Uber throughout and within the city. Comparing cost to owning a car, if you're only working within the city, living within the city, it could be actually cheaper to use those rideshare services than it would be to own a car, considering the cost of insurance, the cost of parking if you don't have designated parking, setting up a bank account just for your parking tickets. Finding parking in itself is time consumptive and risky because of also during the pandemic, the resurgence or increase in car break-ins in San Francisco and other parts of the Bay Area. And grand theft auto in the Bay Area is among the highest in the United States. And while San Francisco is only 7 by 7 or 47 square miles, the terrain varies greatly throughout the city. So it's not necessarily walkable in the sense that all blocks are created equal. They are not. 2nd November 2026, transit funding ballot measures carefully. Hopefully there's not additional property tax increases. Maybe it'll translate into a sales tax increase. We'll see where that additional funding will be coming from. This next fact, I would argue based on your generation, your experience will be different. But fact number 10 is the social limits. And also I would argue that there was a time period where the city felt much more dead because of people moving into a work from home culture, being able to work remotely. The city felt very dead for a long time during the pandemic and post-pandemic. The social scenes are finally starting to make a comeback. However, that said, because of the dominance of tech industry as the attractive industry for transient folks or people who are moving from outside of California and from within California, there can be sort of a monoculture and social circles. I mean, there are plenty of social media posts around the dating scene and also how difficult it might be if you don't belong to this subculture of tech workers. Dating within that scene can be frustrating. San Francisco, relative to other large cities in the United States, is small. It's densely populated, but it can feel insular. It can feel insular for a city of its size, especially if you don't work within tech. And if you're single. Professional networking, a lot of meetup events, Luma events, Eventbrite, professional networking revolves heavily around tech, startup culture, industry meetups. If that's not your scene, making connections can feel a little tougher. Going out to eat, going to events is expensive. Cost of living here is prohibitively high. So if you are a single person attempting to meet people at these more structured events, you could be spending, $100 every night that you go out. And that can add up pretty quickly in San Francisco if you go out once or twice a week. I think people also coming from like a much warmer culture in the South, where people say hi to each other, they look each other in the eyes. I don't know if this common practice or what's been noted online too from other people who live in San Francisco about folks not saying hi. No one says hi in San Francisco is from like the PTSD from the pandemic and people being really socially isolated. And then some of the resulting danger or crime or things that were happening on the street after the pandemic, or if it's just, again, like the majority of workers being focused very much on tech, being immersed in tech and not having exercised that social skill because of the pandemic and work and the hustle, fast-paced culture of San Francisco. It's about avoiding solicitations from people on the street, which happens a lot, whether you're living in San Francisco or Oakland, Berkeley. Yeah, it's a city. San Francisco has the lowest percentage of children than any other city in the United States. Well, any major city in the United States. And it has roughly the same number of dogs as it does children. I thought we actually had more dogs than we have children. And I wonder if that's more adopted dogs than we do children. I don't think this is particularly true, but some argue that this can create like anti-family kid sentiment. I think the United States in general is not very friendly towards our having children culture. We're just not adaptive or accommodating in that way that I've witnessed European cities to be and cities in Mexico to be, some South American cities to be. I think the dual income, no kids identity, I mean, the cost of living much contributes to the hesitance of people in the age range in which maybe San Francisco feels like a good fit for them. They're delaying the decision to have children because of the prohibitive costs of having children in San Francisco. So it could be a negative feedback loop if people are deciding to move away because of the cost of living or the quality of the school system or the public school system or the cost of the private education in their neighborhood. That creates the social isolation that exists for people who decide to stay and have children would maybe not be bearable for a long period of time. And the fewer families with children there are within the city, the fewer in the future there will be, because there's just not a strong sense of community or friendships of people people who have children. And as friends often move away so that they can have kids and can afford kids, and due to the high costs and limited space, either in the house they can afford or the space there is in San Francisco, depending on where you live. The transient nature of the population of San Francisco, I can't remember off the top of my head what percentage of people who live in San Francisco are from outside of San Francisco, but it's pretty high. Yeah, that combined with some of the other factors I was talking about definitely makes making friends, long-term friends, a little bit more difficult. Also contributes to a churn in friendships. Yeah, if you have specific interests, especially outside of tech, try and join those groups or find those connections online. I've always promoted couchsurfing as a way to connect. I think it was founded here in San Francisco. That group is still active and you get to meet a lot of international folks who are either just moving here or visiting here, and they're connected to locals who are here more permanently. Yeah, finding meetup groups, Facebook groups, Luma groups of those specific interests are great ways to meet new people. Folks use apps like Bumble and BFS if they've just moved here to find new friends. There are lots of recreational sports teams in San Francisco. They're great ways to meet people if you don't yet have kids. They're great ways to meet people if you do have kids. Volunteer for festivals or other events in San Francisco if you're a patron of the arts. There are plenty of community organizations giving back to the arts that would love to have you volunteer. Number 9, as I just mentioned about the reality of having children in a city like San Francisco, your income needs are extreme here. The cost of living in San Francisco is probably second to none in the United States, save Manhattan, New York. If you are a single adult not trying to purchase a home, your minimum, to survive in San Francisco probably be north of 120 grand per year. Where am I getting that number from? That's a commonly reported median. But if your rent as a single person in a 1-bedroom apartment is going to be at least $4,000 per month, $3,800 to $4,100 per month, and then your food and grocery costs are going to be $200 per trip 4 times a month, that's $800. You eat out twice per week, that's another $1,000 per month. Taxes, clothing, travel, other activities. You're enjoying your life as a single person. You don't have a car, but you have your Muni card. You have your Muni card for $100 a month. You're taking various Uber or Waymo trips. You're probably spending another $200 per month. So it's $10,000 per month, and that's before taxes. California income taxes are very high. That's why we're coming up with this number. Recent article that mentioned the median cost or the median salary required for a family of 4. And San Francisco is among the highest. The median income needed for a family of 4 is around $400,000. So $200,000 a person for income on this salary at current interest rates, assuming you have 20% down payment, you can maybe afford $1.6 to $2 million house. Living costs in San Francisco are 89% higher than the average cost of living in the United States. I should mention, what are some recent sticker shock items I've encountered in San Francisco? I mean, anywhere in the Bay Area, you're gonna pay $8 for a latte. I had a friend come in from London last year and she said, that's not normal, right? And I know every time I go to Europe, I can still, even though it's an expensive European city, I can get a latte for under €4, €4. So that's one sticker shock item. Pizzas, a large, okay pizza, not even New York style. Like I can walk into a hole in the wall in New York and still get a $3 slice of delicious pizza. I can't find any proper New York style pizza here. And also, you're gonna pay at least $45 for a large couple topping pizza. Frickin' tolls. All right, it's now $8.50 to cross the East Bay Bridge, and I believe it's $10 to cross the Golden Gate Bridge. So the tolls, that's integrated in the cost of driving. I was saying how expensive it is to have a car in San Francisco. Parking in San Francisco, parking in the East Bay, $7 per hour. I was parking on Fillmore and Bush the other day. It was $7 for 1 hour. I'd rather pay $7 for 1 hour than $50 for a parking ticket. Fact number 8, in spite of the higher and growing cost of housing, the competition for real estate, as you might have guessed from the price, right? Because the supply does not match the demand. Demand far outweighs the supply that we have available. The housing competition is brutal. So it's remained so in 2026. Confirmed this for June 2026, but the median cost of a house last month was around, I think, 1.9 million. And then if I look at, the number through anecdotes of, because this isn't necessarily reported, the number of offers per property, but I'll just use an example of a duplex we offered on. It was off market, was pre-marketed, wasn't even on market yet, it was coming soon. It was in Nopa, and there were 6 other preemptive offers. The house is in contract for $600,000 over asking, a complete fixer. So if there are 6 offers preemptively, if that was on market and there were an offer due date, it probably would have received 10 to 12 offers. And there's some parts of the cities where I'm starting to see, or at least it's still not as competitive as Mission Guerrero, Vernal Heights, Glen Park, Noe Valley. There are offer dates I've seen push, and part of that has to do with, I think, vacation time in July. So I don't expect that this slowdown for some neighborhoods to last very long. So most homes, the majority of homes are going to sell for over asking. It's rare to see something sell below the list price. If you do, it probably has someone occupying it that needs to move, or it needs major work, or maybe it was marketed last year and hasn't caught people's attention. But hot homes can sell anywhere from 20 to 40% above asking with multiple offers, and will probably go pending in 7 days or fewer, if not before it's on the open market. You'll have to have your process down before you even start looking in terms of like, here's how we make an offer, here's what we expect to do with our contingencies, here's the financing that I have lined up if it's going to be financing, here's everything's ready to move essentially and able to move quickly. So tighter close of escrow can make you stand out. Of course, like doing due diligence so that you feel comfortable coming in non-contingent when it comes to inspections. That's making sure you go through all the disclosures and reports, see if there's nothing else noted that you might want a specialized contractor to review. Have them do a verbal walkthrough before you offer. There are ways to remain competitive without taking a ton of risk, but you have to do it very quickly, especially if the seller is accepting preemptive offers. And think about that higher number that you're approved for when you're thinking about the time cost, emotional cost of losing out every time because you're refusing to go beyond your budget number. That said, every buyer is different, and when you relocate from out of state, you might have a completely different set of requirements than a local buyer. So you want to understand which neighborhood in San Francisco would be a best fit for your budget and your goals. Take the San Francisco Bay Area quiz. Maybe you'll end up outside of the city. Maybe you'll end up in a neighborhood within the city that surprises you based on median price or weather or the type of environment that you imagine you want now. Fact number 7, utilities costs are extremely high. So we know as consumers that we are paying for PG&E's mistakes through our increased energy bills. There are some alternative programs that help you reduce that monthly cost, but when comparing water, sewer bills, gas, electric, trash recycling to other costs in other major cities in the United States, San Francisco is very high. You're spending around $400 per month when it comes to water, sewer, electric. Let's say on an average size house of 1,200 square feet to 1,500 square feet. Trash recycling, compost for a single family home, or if it's not integrated into your tenancy and common HOA or condo HOA, is probably going to be around $60 a month. So while San Francisco housing prices are 155% pricier than the US average, our utility bills are 55% more expensive than the US average. Just a reminder that PG&E was the same company that was mentioned in Aaron Brockovich back in the 90s. Yeah, they're still around for poisoning people. And they were responsible for the Paradise fires, which other major motion pictures have been made from that history. But there are rumors that San Francisco is trying to buy out PG&E 120-year lease and wants to provide their own power, wants to provide their own gas, electric. Will that make it cheaper? Doubtful. Number 6, and the statement I can interpret it many ways, right? Neighborhood pricing can seem unpredictable. And part of that is, yeah, it's a 7x7 grid. There are over 90 neighborhoods, sub-neighborhoods in San Francisco. So it might not make sense to you that something on Lake Street sells for $4.3 million and a house of similar square footage 4 blocks to the east and south sells for $1.4 million. It's the same features and square footage. What looks like a good deal online often reflects neighborhood factors that aren't obvious from listings or maybe brief visits, right? So I mean, there are some common sense things oftentimes in the thick of looking for houses you might not consider because it's not a peak time for that thing that is a factor to be in your face. So proximity to noise is one factor. Same thing could be true for highways, certain bus routes, proximity to fog, being within that fog zone, type of weather that you have year round, sun exposure, and subtle crime differences. All these things can dramatically affect pricing. Yeah, you should never make an offer, and especially a non-contingent without visiting that house, if possible, that property as many times as you can at different times of the day, maybe different days of the week. So after 5 p.m. in the morning during peak traffic hours, midday on a weekend. Well, it may be easy to move around within a city. Like your daily activities, you're probably going to want to rely on the convenience of being able to potentially walk or bike to your local grocer. You'll probably want to rely on your immediate neighborhood if you're city bound for groceries, your workout, where you walk your dog, your social activities, making that neighborhood specific characteristics crucial to your daily life. Broadly speaking, families with kids might target areas like Coal Valley or Noe Valley. Waterfront buyers gravitate towards the Marina, Mission Bay, or the Dog Patch. Young professionals, especially tech workers, cluster in the Mission Dolores, Mission Guerrero. Value conscious buyers might look in Ocean Beach, might look in outer Sunset or outer Richmond for beach proximity. Not great weather all the time, but you also get diverse cuisine. My point is, even within these areas, block by block pricing can vary widely. Fact number 5, the crime reality is complex, just like any city. I encourage all prospective movers, buyers to the Bay Area to do their own due diligence when it comes to crime. But San Francisco was notorious, probably had national headlines post-pandemic for our fentanyl crisis and the correlation between our unhoused population and this drug problem that we have in the streets that has been concentrated in certain neighborhoods. Concentrated and then shifting. Oakland gets the most negative media attention of the Bay Area cities, but because more people are familiar with San Francisco, they've become more familiar in national headlines of some of these things that I was just mentioning. Even though the National Crime Index, or Oakland's crime index, there are other cities in the Bay Area whose crime index is much higher than that of San Francisco's. San Francisco's is still higher than the national average. And I will say this, over the last couple of years, almost every category of crime has gone down except for homicides, interestingly. Living here on a daily, like some of these crimes of desperation that come from some of the factors I was mentioning before. How does this show up when driving around San Francisco or walking around San Francisco, depending on what neighborhood you're in? There is a stark contrast between extreme wealth and extreme poverty. This can manifest as a visible unhoused crisis. There are tents, shopping carts, blankets and concentrated areas of the city. And the heartbreaking reality of dealing with broken needles, human feces on sidewalks on many streets. Again, I'll look at Grand Theft Auto in the Bay Area in San Francisco compared to other cities in the United States, but that's an annoying factor. I mean, during the 2020 to 2026, I'd say the price of rhodium was high, so a lot of catalytic converters, especially on Priuses, were stolen. Other forms of car vandalism, such as vipping, is really common in San Francisco and other parts of the Bay. Make sure you have a low deductible for break-ins. And I'd say that understand that crime, particularly property crime and visible urban decay, right? Urban blight can be really concentrated in certain parts of San Francisco. Do your own due diligence when it comes to crime rates and specific types of crime rates. And be prepared for, especially if you're commuting into work and it's a completely different environment, there's a psychological impact of witnessing such visible disparities. And you want to factor, I mean, if you are living in an area where there is more crime, factor in the cost of additional security in your area. What are ring cameras, stolen packages, that's a thing throughout the Bay, especially during the holidays. What are the benefits of having a doorman if you're living in one of these neighborhoods where there are frequent package deliveries because you live in a more communal space, like a place with an HOA, a high-rise building? Yeah, some of what shapes day-to-day safety perceptions ties back to the city's unhoused crisis. A 2024 point-in-time count put the city's unhoused population at 7,800 individuals, and the city spends close to $600 million a year on related services. And there's visible concentration in areas of Soma and the Tenderloin. I'm definitely not here to discourage you from moving to San Francisco in the Bay Area. I want you to arrive with eyes wide open. And if you want assistance in your search, whether it's within San Francisco or another part of the Bay Area, my contact information is below. You can reach out directly or email me, send me a text message. Fact number 4, and this could be a fun fact, the first part of it anyway, and that's that the Golden Gate Bridge sings. And there are other unexpected sounds in the city that you need to prepare for depending on where you live. So while it's often romanticized, the Golden Gate Bridge can produce this eerie, high-pitched ringing noise, humming or screaming during strong winds. If you're biking, walking, boating underneath, this could warrant earplugs. That's just one example of a sensory experience in San Francisco. Other unexpected sensory experience would be the moisture, the persistent moisture from the fog and colder environment. The constant presence of fog, for example, could create a damp, quiet atmosphere in some areas, while other parts of San Francisco, you might be exposed to a persistent wind noise. Yeah, if noise sensitivity is an issue, there are other maps for noise pollution within the city, and make sure you research specific neighborhoods for their sound profiles. Again, don't move across the street from something that is going to produce a lot of noise. Yeah, fact number 3 is going to be the tech bubble dependency. Many folks who are long-term San Franciscans complain about the omnipresent tech culture in San Francisco. That San Francisco used to be much less homogenous in terms of employment. The tech sector, which drives 25 to 30% of the city's employment. Our economy is heavily reliant on tech industry success, making it to industry cycles. There was a recent article about the .com boom, but supposedly this AI boom is unlike any other tech boom San Francisco has seen before. And a recent article article in Mission Local described exactly how this AI tech boom is different from past booms. According to that article, in the past 3 years, 60% of VC or venture capital investment in AI went to companies in San Francisco. The way it's different is that while there's more office space now leased than there was in the previous 3 years, the dot-com pandemic tech boom, tech companies were spending much more on office space than the AI startup companies are now. And while the dot-com boom and the tech of the 2010s created many more jobs, this is not true for the AI boom. In the past 3 years, there have been over 30,000 tech jobs that have been lost. The labor market's interestingly cold. Then the housing market's crazy. The apartment market is extremely competitive. So even if you don't work in tech, you will be affected by the city's dependency on the tech industry. Of course, most non-tech jobs pay significantly less relative to the cost of living created by the demand for space. Fact number 2, the social and cultural isolation. I did talk a little bit about this before, like the difficulty of meeting friends if you're coming from outside of San Francisco, you're new to San Francisco. I mean, what's ironic about it is it can feel surprisingly homogenous in social and professional circles, despite its reputation around diversity. And I could say there are exceptions to this. It's unfortunate that the cost of living has naturally filtered out economic diversity. Of course, this correlates with what's happened in our economy over the years since I've graduated college, right? So when I was first here in 2010, there seemed to be more economic diversity, more of a middle class, more diversity of industry within the city. Can also be because of what I now work in, working in real estate versus education or education tech. So you are exposed to different types of people depending on where you work. Many longtime residents, ones that moved away and came back, are priced out, or people who perhaps graduated during this rapid appreciation time period between 2014 and now, even during the pandemic. I mean, you might struggle to find authentic relationships, reducing the community connections that make a place feel like home. As I mentioned before, it could be a very transitory, transitional feeling place if folks have moved here to make big bucks in AI or tech and then move elsewhere. So you don't have the same level of investment in those social connections that you might in other cities where people choose to move for different reasons. Your mood is most certainly, or at least mine is, affected by the lack of casual connections. Those types of interactions I noticed were missing when I'd been here during the pandemic, had not traveled, and then went to Europe, was in Italy and Spain, and I guess this was 2022. I realized how much we were still stuck in that way of socializing, keeping distance, on alert, and it felt so much better to be in a place, even if I was interacting with strangers. A high five, a hello, a smile absolutely can change someone's mood. So if no one says hi because they're on their phone, immersed in technology in a way that they're not in other cities, obsessed with, this other limb, that doesn't feel good in a social space. That's one of the reasons I enjoy living as a city, in a fit city, because I do get to have those interactions. Of course, the social cost of isolation affects mental health, quality of life in ways that making a lot of money cannot solve. Actively seek community outside of work, get involved with some of the organizations, festivals, events that have happened or that have been around for decades in San Francisco. This is how you meet long-term community or community that's here to stay. If you're lonely in San Francisco, I've created this guide of things to do when you first move here to meet community. I did when I moved here, and granted, I was a teacher when I first moved here, but I would volunteer for a lot of, and it wasn't with the intention necessarily of trying to find other friends. It was just that I was doing things that I loved. I wanted to volunteer for these organizations and learn more about them. And then by default, met people who had similar values, interests, and are still my friend to this day. If you're someone who's shy, who, you are one of those high IQ, maybe low EQ people, or you consider yourself like socially awkward, maybe it's a brilliant idea to volunteer for events. Do something on the weekends that is completely unrelated to your job that you are interested in or could become passionate about. There's dopamine galore in any physically active activity. There are a ton of structured classes around non-conventional or unconventional exercise. And this is fact number 1, the reality that breaks dreams, and is a reason that some people, even who have been able to afford San Francisco in the last 10 years, are considering moves to Marin County. The recent housing market has done exactly that, pushed people into North County and the East Bay. So Oakland, Berkeley, Albany, El Cerrito, other deep East Bay, which I'll talk about in another video. But the cost of living is the number one one factor that, even though I've mentioned this among other facts, wears people down who aren't from here, don't have an inheritance, don't have some other either social safety net or financial safety net to stay here, to ultimately survive living here long term and retiring here. And even people who have been here for many decades consider retiring in other parts of the world and the United States because of the prohibitively high cost of living. And that's, again, almost 90% higher than the national average. It's 112% higher than California's average, the state's average, and that's a 5% increase since 2025. What's happening? I mean, we know gas prices have come up, so the cost of housing goods have gone up. Single biggest shock is, even with an extremely high income, the cost of living makes that income relatively low compared to where you came from, right? So if, just as an example, let's compare Dallas, Texas and San Francisco. Here's a median price in Dallas, Texas. Let's choose one of the more expensive areas like Highland Park. Median house is this much, but you're getting like a 4,000 square foot house with 5 bedrooms, 4 baths. Yeah, your property taxes are high, but your school district is great. So you don't have to pay for private school. A cost of gas in Texas is probably $3.50 for premium, whereas it's $6.49 for premium here, maybe $6.25. I think actually gas prices have gone down a little bit in the last week. It's July 2026. So gas prices are probably $6, anywhere from $5.50 to $6 for premium. When it comes to a cup of coffee in Dallas, Texas at your local bakery coffee shop, you're probably gonna pay, I don't know, $4.50 to $5. In San Francisco, it'll be $7 to $8.50. Families making 300 grand to 400 grand feel financially stretched. It's not psychological stress and spending 60 to 70% of your income on basic living costs. Of course, that affects relationships, long-term planning, long-term family planning, more money than you ever had before, while simultaneously potentially feeling financially vulnerable in ways that high earners in other parts of the United States never feel. There's something they call Prop 13 feudalism, where newcomers are paying disproportionately higher taxes than people who purchased a long time ago. So not only did they acquire their home at a much better price and their mortgage has been refinanced into an incredibly low interest rate, if there's a mortgage at all, they are paying significantly less in property tax. It's based on their acquisition price, a valuation that is not reflective of today's market value. And it's just not fair. And when we talk about these deficits, especially delegation, I know there are definitely city special fixed assessments that contribute to an increase in the property taxes on everyone, but it's still not enough, clearly, to help with some of these city budget deficits. The San Francisco MTA's deficit that I was referencing earlier in this video. So before you move here, do detailed financial modeling for, if you are going to buy a house, what does the mortgage look like? Do I have enough down payment saved so I can avoid mortgage insurance? What are my taxes going to look like based on that valuation? Not the seller who purchased it 40 years ago. What does home insurance look like? What is the cost of health insurance? That's something I didn't talk about in this video. Surprisingly, in the past, rates for, let's say you're self-employed, rates for a family of 4 in San Francisco is cheaper than other parts of the Bay, especially the East Bay. Do an analysis on what it looks like to have a car versus not, and take Caltrain if you're commuting to the South Bay. If you're living within the city, what does it look like not to have a car? What does it look like to raise children without a car in San Francisco? Is there a year if you don't want to retire here? It seems unrealistic, or you want to target somewhere where cost of living is so much lower outside of San Francisco. How much do you need to save to achieve that goal? And the bottom line is San Francisco and the San Francisco Bay Area isn't for everyone, and that's okay. Maybe culturally it is for you. You're moving here for reasons other than wanting to work within the tech industry. Now, what kind of income do you need, or what do you need to save before you move into the Bay Area, such that you're not trying to play catch up with savings for retirement later on, or savings for a house later on? Maybe the move isn't for right now. Maybe it's for the bust period of this AI tech boom. Come visit San Francisco and stay in Airbnbs in different parts of the city for as long as you can. If you are making a move to San Francisco for a job for the tech industry, all the things that I've mentioned about surprising facts, if it's about noise sensitivity, if it's about crime, if it's about getting around without a car, what day-to-day life would feel like, especially if you have kids and you want to entertain them, you want to make sure you're close to a neighborhood that has amenities and other families with kids. Stay in Airbnbs in different parts of the city to explore. If you want a preliminary assessment of where you think you might belong in San Francisco, got a neighborhood quiz below that's a little bit more granular. Maybe you won't land in San Francisco proper. Maybe you're okay with a short commute from the East Bay. If you're working in the peninsula and a commute seems unrealistic, maybe the peninsula is where you want to land, and you're compromising asset type based on that assessment. Alternatively, my contact information is below if you'd like more granular information about some of the facts that I mentioned. Happy to hop on a call. Hope to see you in the San Francisco Bay Area soon. Hit the subscribe button for more videos like this.